When I first heard that they were making a sequel to Joker, I wondered why. I mean, obviously, it made over $1 billion, but from the character arc and narrative perspective, it really felt like a story that needed to be left alone, as it was. Then, I heard that it was a musical and that Lady Gaga was going to play Harley Quinn, and that actually sounded like an idea that could be crazy and different in a fun way. But now I watched it, and I'm back to wondering, why is this a movie? Just why? Joker, Folie à Deux, deals with the consequences of the chaos Arthur Fleck caused and the murders he committed. He is now at Arkham awaiting trial, and his defense is being built on making the case for a dual identity, arguing that Joker is a separate persona in Arthur's mind. But one day, in music therapy, he meets a female patient, Lee Quinn, and for him, this encounter changes everything. This movie is a musical, it's a psychological drama, it's a courtroom drama, and it's a dark romance. Honestly, an intriguing combination of things, but I promise you, this sounds more interesting than it actually is. To be fair, I thought the movie was off to a pretty strong start. The first act, which is about an hour, was pretty good, mostly focusing on Arthur's life at Arkham and the beginning of his relationship with Lee. It's the most focused part of the movie and also has some of the best cinematography and lighting. The tone and the mood are right, the color palette is used well, the production design is impressive. I was genuinely interested where they were going to take this movie from here, particularly because I enjoy courtroom dramas. So I was looking forward to what that element of the film was going to be like. What were we going to learn about Arthur and about our favorite topic, the society, from the courtroom scenes? The answer is not much. The trial itself is mostly dull, which to me was shocking. It lacked the energy in the dialogue, it lacked real tension, and it didn't really add anything new to what we already know from the first movie. The two real highlights of the trial are Lee Gill reprising his role as Gary, and the musical number, which was actually unhinged in a fun way. But generally, if I'm being completely honest, the trial section, which is quite long, almost put me to sleep. I'm sorry, I know that sounds harsh, but I was struggling, and that is once again considering that I am normally a fan of the courtroom stuff. And then there is the ending. No spoilers, but I cannot wait to see people's reactions to this ending. I'm expecting mixed, leaning into negative, but it is going to be divisive at the very least. Personally, I was annoyed by it, and it just added to me already questioning, what is the point of all of this? But let's get back to the positives for a minute. I already mentioned the cinematography and lighting when it comes to the first act, and those remain strong throughout the entire movie. The score is also very good, although not as striking as it was in the first Joker. Joaquin Phoenix once again delivers an excellent performance as Arthur Fleck. I don't think anyone had any doubts about that going into this movie. And even though I am not 100% sold on the direction they took with his character in this movie, he is still by far the most fascinating part of both films. I did enjoy a few of the musical numbers as well. The movie actually peaked for me on that musical number you see in the trailer where Arthur and Lee look like they are trying to escape. But this is also where we get back into the negatives, because while these musical numbers are well done on their own, and the idea of using songs to illustrate how the characters feel and what's going on in their minds is a fun one, particularly when you combine it with how dark the situation is, most of them completely break the flow of the film. The movie often struggles to maintain tension to begin with, and it's really unfortunate how much these musical numbers hurt the momentum even further. They also just end up feeling repetitive because some of them are not spaced out very well, and while there are standouts that are among the highlights of the movie, Others kind of feel like they either go on for too long or start blending into one another in your memory. As for Lady Gaga playing Harley Quinn, or Lee, she is good, but she isn't really given that much to do. Same with Brendan Gleeson actually, but I want to focus on Lee. She is there mostly for the musical numbers, and that's unfortunate because she is a talented actress, and this role could have been a very exciting part of her career, but she is severely underused. When it comes to the second half of the movie, that's mostly the trial. For the most part, she is kind of in the background. Her character is generally very one note. I'm sorry about the pun. For a minute there, I thought the movie was about to comment on romanticizing criminals, but it doesn't really have anything to say about this. That's just her character. Lee is so flat and poorly developed that at one point I questioned if she was even real at all, or if she is possibly entirely in Arthur's head. And as for the romance, even that was disappointing because their relationship doesn't go anywhere all that interesting. It does have somewhat of an arc, but it's not a particularly exciting one. In the end, Joker Folie à Deux feels pointless and drawn out. It starts off strong, but then gets lost along the way and ends up feeling directionless. The way this comes off is as if the filmmakers had some compelling and refreshing concepts for this movie, but didn't really know what to do with them or where to take them. It also feels that, unlike the first movie, there wasn't really a story Todd Phillips was compelled to tell. The first Joker, love it or hate it, had a vision, had a character that it wanted to explore in a specific way, and as unsubtle as its commentary was, it felt focused and motivated, and it was driven by its ideas. This movie, it just doesn't have anything new to add. This is why people have been saying that this movie feels like an extended epilogue rather than a second chapter of Arthur's story. It almost backtracks on the character in some ways. At the end of the first movie, it seems like Arthur embraces himself as Joker. He accepts the chaos, darkness, and anger within himself. It's dark and it's fucked up. We can argue about the messaging, but it feels transformative for him. But this movie is like, well, actually, is Joker even a thing? Maybe Arthur just needs a hug. I genuinely want to hear from people who loved this movie because I want to know who this was for. I thought this was going to be for me, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the original Joker, but it was trying a new approach. It was combining darkness with something more playful. There was the courtroom element. But no, this was definitely not for me. So please, if you did really enjoy it, talk to me in the comments. Let me know why. Look, Joker Folie à Deux isn't a movie with nothing to appreciate. I have no issues with the aesthetics or the performances. It's beautifully shot, it's moody, the lighting is gorgeous, and the actors do their best with what they are given, Joaquin Phoenix being the biggest standout once again, but neither the writing nor the pacing do this movie any favors. Most of the characters are paper thin, there are too many musical numbers, some of the logistics don't make sense, which I can't really get into because of spoilers, and the movie feels too long and is nowhere near as satisfying as it should be, with an ending that just makes you go, well, I guess that's that. So why is this a movie? I still don't know. It's unnecessary. By the end, it really feels like the joke is on the viewer, and as a viewer, I didn't appreciate that.